Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dice the milk up regularly while I talk about art, talk about life, some internet topics here and there. But today I'm going to be talking to y'all about art school and my first experience from the first semester. So get relaxed in, get ready to hear my sick voice because we're still recovering right now. Grab a drink. I have seltzer water today, and let's dive right into this. Okay, so today, as you just heard, we're going to be talking about art school. And I would say it's been a very interesting experience. And this is specifically meant for if people are interested in going to art school, they question oh, should I go? Is it worth it? And honestly, I would say you have to have a very I guess not crystal clear idea, but more clear idea of what you want to do with your art to go to art school. Because okay, so starting this whole spiel off, the art school that I go to specifically, it's a experimental multimedia art school. So with other art schools, we would normally define our majors by our end of second or sophomore year. But with my school, you don't define them at all. So that means I could do a fucking drawing. I could take a drawing class one semester, and then the next year I could be oh, I want to try metalworking. They don't care as long as you build those foundational classes up and up. But compared to other schools I looked at, they require you to choose a very specific path line. So if you're even considering going to art school, you have to start to think about that, especially in the States. You have to be oh, do I want it to be more traditional? You have a foundational year, you learn how to draw fucking draped fabric a specific way, things are a very set in stone way. Or you can choose a school like mine where they're oh, always experiment, always be doing different things, which there are some major pros and cons to that. But I think the school that I go to, at least, again, it's mainly centered around being a multimedia artist. And I think mainly multimedia artists really thrive there, because I've met some people during my time there, and it's not quite the fit for everyone. And a lot of people come in and they expect it to be the perfect fit for them, but they have troubles with stuff. They might not like the style of teaching, or they might not like how it's multimedia. But again, I think the foundation for my school, at least, is to be a multimedia artist. That being said, it's a very interesting way of learning art, because what I've found and what I've learned across my other classes that I took and the ones I took at my state university last year is that you really you have to know what you want to do with your art. Because the challenges that we were given, I know I'm just in my first year, but the challenges we were really given were broad. And I'll think of a project, they gave us a sewing machine and access to a laser cutter, and they said, make something out of it. We don't care what you make, you just have to make anything. And people struggle a lot with that because it's really broad. I mean, they don't even tell you what you're supposed to be making. It's your job to take that initiative and to make it. And what I found is if you then if you're making all this stuff, the easiest way to connect it to your art is to have it involve something with your practice. For me during that challenge, I just learned how to use a sewing machine. So for me, I was like, oh, I'm finally able to use a sewing machine. Let's sew a vest. And I used, like, I added some different things to the vest. I think y'all saw it in my last video, but I, like, pierced it. I added chains. I outfitted a bunch of stuff. But it's still connected to my artist practice as a whole because it was sewing, creating, like, a fashion garment. It was recycling materials, used out of a pair of jeans, and it involved making patches and embroidering. But that's why, like, if you make something completely out of left field and something that doesn't connect to your practice, it kind of feels like a waste of time, even though you're just making art. Like, for another project in the same class, we were required to weave, and so I made a weaving that looked like an arcade floor. And it looked pretty cool. It was semi-connected, but it didn't feel like it was a part of my art practice. It just felt like I was making something just for the shit of it. Like, that's all I can really say. And that was more towards the beginning of the year. So if you really, like, want go to a school like this, like, I would recommend thinking about, like, am I going to be this versatile with my art? Am I going to be able to experiment in these ways? Which they're really good challenges. You just have to be flexible enough to figure out, oh, how do I make this project on spot? And how do I do this? How do I, like, incorporate this element? Oh, well, this isn't working out. Let's try this way. A lot of problem solving. And also, I would like to say, like, there's a lot of multitasking going on. Like, I had only 3 studio classes last semester, it's the standard, but 2 of them are, like, foundational year classes. But I had to, like, juggle 3 different projects, like, over the course of a couple months. Like, I would constantly be cycling through projects through all the 3 classes, but I would constantly have 3 projects going on. And it's a lot of, like, churning out art, which is expected. It's a lot of pushing your creativity. It's a lot of just, like, I was told, like, to flex the creativity muscle and, like, get used to constantly being challenged and constantly having to create. And I can't glamorize it. It's not a fun thing to start out doing. Like, I mean, for me especially, I got a bunch of whiplash to go from maybe having, like, one art class. Well, I mean, like, I took my first art class a year ago to have one art class a semester where I'm doing, like, still lives and, like, painting a self-portrait of myself, to have to learn how to make my own project, structure it, plan it, and then gather all the materials, which no one tells you how hard it is to gather materials in the city. Like, stuff is expensive, and then, like, when you try to go around that, like, you end up finding yourself doing weird things. Like, it took me forever. It took me a week to find leather for my jacket. Like, I was initially gonna, like, buy a hide of leather. Like, I was gonna do all this stuff. I was gonna get scrap leather, craft it by hand. But no, like, there were all these hoops that I had to jump through initially just to get the materials. And then, but you have to, like, learn how to work on all of this and then, like, spend hours on a project. Like, one time I condensed my project too much and I spent, like, 7 or 8 hours, same jacket, working on it the night before. And then I had to do a 6-hour critique. Next day, 6 hours of drawing. And then I had to be ready to create then. Like, I had to be physically ready to be like, okay, what do I want to do? And the thing is, you just don't have, like, room for art block. Like, you can get block, but it really hinders your ability to think and create. And you can have block for a month too. It really harms you, and you have to figure out, how do I take care of myself? How do I get out of this creative block? Which, it's a struggle to learn, but I think that's one of the main things that I got taught, at least here. Like, they teach you how to be a creative all the time. Like, I think like the major thing that I learned is how to seamlessly like blend everyday life into like your creating process, because it's not just, oh, I go paint, I stop, that's it, like that's all I'm doing. Like, it's a lot of, oh, I go out, I experience life, like, or I experience nature, I take reference photos, I like just enjoy life, but I also research the topics that I'm interested in. Lot of research. Like, go explore museums, look at archives, research artists, get involved in the art scene. A lot of that. But, and like previously, I was thinking of my practice as, oh, I just have my little sketchbook, I'll get it out, I'll like, I don't know, I'll draw David Bowie, call it good. That's all my art is. But then by going to art school, they're like, oh, there's Tabitha in the background. Hi, Tibble. But then they teach you to like take that idea of art, morph it into something new and better and more seamless. What I mean to say with all of this is it is challenging, at least from the start. Getting started in art school is hard, and honestly, it's not fun. Some aspects are fun, like, and some people get more into it than others, but it is hard. It's hard to change your way of thinking about the world and being creative. It's hard to learn all these new practices, but I think it's worth it, in my opinion. I think if you're really like devoted to art, if you really want to embrace it and learn something new, it's worth it. Because that like blends into the territory of, if you don't want to learn anything, which I don't know why you would want to go to art school in the first place. Maybe you were seeking a different experience. But if you don't want to learn any new practices, you don't want to learn any new mediums, then it gets into the territory of you're just unhappy, and it might not be the fit for you. Because over one semester, like, I met a couple people who like were happy there, which again, not the fit for everyone. And it's all up to you about how you like fit into this stuff and how much you like it. Because again, like, art school it's a tough fit. I have to admit that it's a tough fit. Oh, there's like a little patch of sun that just wants to shine right in my eyes. But I don't know, you really have to take advantage of it. I think that's where people get like the most meaning from. You have to take advantage of the faculty. You have to take advantage of the materials and the supplies they have. Like, at my school, they have like this area, I think it's just full of extra materials. You can dig through it, get extra fabric from like the fibers department and fashion department. You can get extra wood through the wood shop, like just random materials. But to take advantage of that, it really, like, you have to be ready to be like, okay, I have a limited amount of time here. What can I do? And use the facilities. Like, we have a wood shop, we have laser cutters, we have like, well, this is obviously for other classes, but like a forge, we have like all these studios. But I think to get the most enrichment out of it, you have to take advantage of the faculty too, because at my school, they're all like working artists. So they already know like a little bit how to be a working artist in the city, how to have your own practice, how to have like earn money from being an artist, your own studio, to work with other artists, collaborations, like work with brands, all this wide stuff. But then if you don't do anything about it, you don't get the full fulfillment. That's That's what really comes down to it. And just one of like the great purposes of art school is you're enveloped in this creative sphere, and everybody around you creates art in some fashion. Like this is the time ever, besides like, I don't know, 2020 Instagram, this is like the most I've been surrounded by artists, even though like I'm home right now, but it's the most I've been surrounded by artists. And it's just such a luxury and a privilege to be able to talk to your friends about art. Like there's a lot of like creative discussions and collaborations that go on, a lot of talk about practice, art as a whole, meaning behind your art, sharing your art, getting critiques, and just working on making it better. That's what it really is for. And to just work and be able to get better with all of this brings me back to the idea of critiques. Those also need to be taken advantage of, because I do know there are some people who will like half-ass projects and just turn it in for the shit of it. Like that's bound to happen no matter where you go. It's there. And also because it happens a lot more frequently at my art school, because it's a pass-fail art school. So whatever you put into it, you get out of it. So if people are like putting in a half-assed attempt, they get a half-assed attempt. But these critiques like lend a time for your peers and professors to just be able to look at your art, examine the meaning behind it, make you understand it more, but also make you question how it is perceived by other people. Because for me, like a couple times, like I would present a piece and then they would like talk about, they're like, oh, this interesting aspect, like, did you mean to intend this? Like, audiences are gonna think this because you're showcasing this. Like my Ronald Reagan piece over there, like it was just meant to be like, oh, haha, funny piece, fuck Ronald Reagan. I might revise it because I was told that even though like I like symbolized him getting his head cut off, that I was still depicting him in a good light. I was still depicting him like a statue almost, very stoic. And I just meant to depict him as funny. I meant it to depict him as, get a load of this guy over here. But it didn't quite carry off that way. And so you have to take advantage of all these comments and all this advice. But I would say it's not necessary to go to art school for your art practice. It really is not. It helps your practice immensely, and it's a good time to focus on like what you need to learn. But it's not for everybody's practices. Like, let's say if I just wanted to be a painter, I honestly, if I just wanted to be a painter, I wouldn't really need to go to art school in that way. Like, if I just wanted to paint still lives, like, which I could have done, but I wouldn't go to art school, because why would I just want to like sit and paint and then get told like all this stuff and like have my professors like not like my subject or something like that? Or if I just wanted to do like simple portraiture, not really like push the boundaries of my art, wouldn't have worked out. Like, the main reason why I am going into art school is I'm trying to find the intersection between fashion and art in my own area. Because like I'm known for like modifying jackets and like adding patches and all kinds of stuff like that. But to bring it on a bigger scale and learn how to make like these extravagant garments with fashion techniques, but also incorporating aspects of my art. But see, this is like back to the whole overarching example of you need to know what you want to do to really like be able to put your all into it. Like you can of course like question things and not fully know. Like, at the beginning of the year, I was like really questioning, like, fashion. Like, it's not really my thing, but why don't I try it for fun? And now I'm gonna go into a fashion class next semester, which y'all will be getting a review, of course, because little scared of fashion classes, but that one's gonna be a bit interesting. But so, like, you gotta know what you want to do. But it's not like, again, it's not necessary for every art practice. And also, addressing the major thing, holy shit, art school costs a lot of money. Oh my God. Like, there's such a big financial barrier just to go to art school. And for me, when I'm just like surrounded by it, I can see like that there is such a financial barrier just to get here. That's honestly sometimes why it's not worth it too, is like to go into this area and go into massive debt just to learn this stuff. Which if you have like discipline and you just keep at your art, you can honestly get a similar result from just doing it on your own. You might not get the critiquings, but if you put yourself in a proper community, you can get the same benefits from being at art school. And I would also like to say, I can see it, like the financial difference in the classmates around me. Because, of course, this is obvious, but you're going to be a lot of, like, rich people in art school who, like, I don't know, they hold themselves financially different than you. There's going to be that initial difference. And with the history of art, oh my God, callbacks to art history, but it's known for being a very like prestigious practice and job to get into. It was controlled by the Academy in England. Yeah, it was controlled by the Academy, and then so only wealthy people, like you would typically have like the first son like own the business, the second one would like travel and then help the first son, and then the third son was always known as the artist. And it's also a very like inherently male like career and practice back in the ye olden times. But it was very privileged. It was very controlled to be an artist. Like, if you were an artist, you would go to the academy, you would study fine art there, like you would learn from the masters, you would learn how to like traditionally oil paint, and it would be very, very prestigious, and you would have to follow this accordance, and you would either end up depicting these rulers in this like very traditional portraiture, or you would like paint the depictions of religious text and religious figures. And it was like these two choices that you had. But to get there in the first place, you would have to be absolutely rich. Absolutely rich to just be able to be like, yeah, I'm not gonna work. I'm gonna work as an artist. And you had to be very good just to be able to be a working artist. Tabitha, look at her go. But yeah, it's such an interesting history behind art. And I think like they do a good job like talking about it. Well, it depends on the professor, of course, but I think I've had some professors who do a really good job talking about like how much privilege it is to pursue art. It's still like, it's very strange, but you're of course going to encounter the people who don't realize how much privilege it is to be creating art. Because, I mean, this goes to the idea of art has been perceived to be a luxury in society, even though I personally would like to disagree based on media consumption that us as humans do all the time. But art is considered a luxury. And so the act of pursuing art is considered a luxury too. Like, there's just And then there's that all that prestige that comes from going to art school. To be like, oh yes, I'm an artist and I'm going to art school. There's all this prestige and preconceived notions that people will have of you. That's another thing you have to get ready for, is the amount of backlash you get from going to art school. Because I have pretty supportive relatives and family, but also half of my family on my other side absolutely hate that I'm going to art school. You have to be ready to like fight for your place. It's like a constant battlefield, because I always get asked like, oh, well, what are you going to do as an artist? How are you going to make it? What are you going to do? And I have to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I love having this conversation of what am I going to do as an artist? And then like, because I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what I want to start, but I even have people like question me there because I've sold a couple commissions for jackets before. Like, I'm working on painting commissions and I'm gonna get more into like clothing customization. But even then, people will question me. They'll be like, oh, well, can you really make a career out of that? I don't know. I have random people stopping me on the street and being like, hey, do you sell your pants? Like, there is obviously a market for it, but you act like there's not a market for it because people are still ignorant to the idea of art as a career. But there's the whole narrative of the starving artist, which helps no one. But yeah, you have to be ready for that. And this ties to an earlier thing I was saying, competitive and non-competitive art schools. That is another important distinction that you want to make. Because I go to a non-competitive art school, and honestly, it makes the difference. It really does. Because when I went to my state school and took art class, I had people competing with me when I didn't want to be competed with. Like, I don't know, this was in perceptual drawing, but I would draw something and then I would have like people like trying to compete with me mentally, or like I would have them like walk by me and sneer at my art as I was just getting started, and I'm like, what the fuck? What kind of hostile environment are y'all making with the art? I'm just making marks on the paper. I am like, whoo, look at this figure go. And you're walking by me and being like, oh, and giving me a stink face over my drawings? Like, that honestly makes the difference. Like, what the hell? Dude, you can't, like, keep a normal, like, a neutral resting face for, like, 5 minutes? What the fuck? But yeah, people would, like, they would try to compete and, like, try to be complimented more, like, have the better art, which I think it's, like, it's good to have a little competition. I had a painting professor who would constantly be like, yeah, you have to have a little bit of ego to be an artist because you have to want to have all of your artwork displayed and know that you're worthy. Which, there's a little bit of truth in that, but you have to reconcile with that on your own. I can't help you there. But just like, what the hell is going on with that toxic environment? And then I got placed in art school now. Everybody's so nice because it's non-competitive. Like, everybody, we all have different mediums and different practices, so you can't quite compete. Like, how are you gonna compare, like, me as, like, a more realistic portraiture artist to, like, someone who does abstract, dream-like, surrealist art? Like, you can't compare. It's apples and watermelons. Compared to if everybody's just doing portraiture, then like it becomes so much easier for everybody to compare it. But it makes such an environment difference. So hey, if you're looking into art school, I recommend looking more towards the non-competitive. But if you really want to go at it and fight someone with some pastels as you draw a figure, that could be good for you too. But I like to keep a little bit of my competitive side in mind. I don't like to showcase it, but in the back of my mind, I'm competing against my past self. That's really who you should be competing against, because everybody has a different art process and a different story. But if you're battling it out with yourself from a year ago, oh yeah, throw down that shit. You better be better than them. Like, go on and fight them. I mean, that's why I have all those sketchbooks, so I can look back and be like, oh my god, 17-year-old Red, what the fuck were you making? Oh my god, art. Well, anyways, main points of all of this is difference between competitive and non-competitive art school. Think about what you want to make. Get ready for the backlash. Think about art as a career and what way you would go. And also, if you like to explore different mediums or not. This is why you research all of this before you apply. Because you don't want to end up like me and like procrastinate all of your stuff, create a portfolio in a month, get into art school, but then also start researching the art schools after you got accepted. Like, you don't want to do that stuff. So please research, but also it worked out at the end for me. So it will work out at the end for you, hopefully. But I wish you good luck on all of y'all's journeys. Okay, thank you for watching the video. Oh my god, I just talked about art for 30 minutes again. This is a new standard. So funny, like, I could just ramble on about topics about this, but this has been stuck all in my mind because art school is such a unique experience. Now I'm gonna rest my voice because it's probably not good that I talked for 30 minutes straight. But thank you for 270 subscribers. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and I'll see y'all soon.